Welcome and thank you for joining today's Health Innovations at Work mini session. Please note that all participant lines will be on listen-only mode for the duration of this presentation. Should you require technical assistance, send a private note to the event producer via the chat panel located on the lower right-hand side of your screen, or call our help desk at 1-888-796-6118. With that, I'd like to turn things over to Nurse Jessie. Please go ahead.
Hello, and welcome to Two for Tuesday, Occupational and Physical Therapy, Musculoskeletal Questions and Answers. This is a part of our 2019 Health Innovations at Work mini session. These are virtual gatherings based upon the topics that you've asked to learn more about. We plan these in such a way that you can actually walk and listen to us as you'll be sent the recording, and maybe that's how you're actually listening today. But we're sharing with you best practice strategies delivered by local and sometimes even national experts. And each time you'll be asked to submit questions prior, so we're hoping on answering all of your questions today. And just to let you know, we do plan each following session based upon your feedback. So jumping in, one of our featured guests today is one of our own physical therapists, Artel. And as you can see, he's a highly decorated physical therapist working not only with individuals, but now switching gears a little bit to work with our employers to decrease work injuries and improve the health of their employees. Hi, Adam.
Hello.
All right, and Two for Tuesday, we get another featured guest, Scott Oleniczak. He is an occupational therapist that's been with Bell & Health for 15 years. As you can tell, Scott is a lover of learning, and you can see his multiple certifications there as well. His specialty practice area is work injury management, which he provides on-site with different companies throughout the greater Green Bay area. So welcome to you, Scott.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me.
Great. So you guys, before we jump into this conversation, I just wanted to ground us with a few things. We're talking about musculoskeletal disorders, and I really want to know what is your definition of this, and just so our listeners can kind of get on the same page.
And when you look at a musculoskeletal type disorder, I think more of a lay term for that is, I look at it as a strain or sprain.
Okay.
You know, something that happens to like a muscle, a tendon, a ligament, a nerve, you know, the connective tissue that kind of holds your body together. And what happens is sometimes you have a breakdown of that connective tissue, and it could be the result of maybe repetitive movements. Perhaps you're doing something that's really dynamic, like raking leaves really hard, or maybe you're sitting too long in a chair, and then your back begins to ache you and things like that. Those types of stiffness and soreness and things sometimes they don't go away, and I think when we look at that is how we're going to manage strains and sprains. We're going to get into some really deep conversation on that today.
Right. So, Adam, I don't know, could you weigh in a little bit on, like, at the employer site, what are some things that could cause, these type of injuries?
Sure. I think the biggest question is always looking at how the people are working. So you look at ergonomics and you look at body mechanics, and so how heavy are the forces that they have to lift, or how much force they have to use to grasp or to pull. So kind of the strength portion of things. And then when you start to look at combining that with the amount of time they have to perform that for, the postures that they have to hold, how many just repeated motions they have to do, even the higher chance for, trauma, physical trauma, bumping things, getting cut, physical stress points, vibration. But the other thing that I think people forget about is some of the other things that can kind of contribute, which goes a little bit unheard of, and that's when you look at overall health of individuals, so the stress that they go through, whether it's physical stress or if it's emotional stress, or if it's financial stress. The stress itself can cause an increase for problems in overall health, right? I mean, if people have diabetes, or if they're overweight, or if they have other comorbidities that have underlying factors that play into it, that's why it's important that you kind of have to take each person as an individual, and you can't group everybody all the time. Those are some big factors that go into people getting injured.
Right, and good call out to the holistic nature. I mean, here we're really working on we use the different dimensions of well-being, and I think that was a good call out to all of those working in conjunction to have the healthiest and happiest employees, for sure. For sure.
One thing I just want to add on stress, too, because you kind of see it in both directions, where we go to industries where people, they'll sign up for a certain, like, say, a 40-hour job. They hop right into that job. They end up working 50, 60 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Because people are job hopping and the work is so plentiful, that creates a stressful environment, much like if a person doesn't have the right, you flip the coin, if a person doesn't have the right job, can't make the right amount of income,
right,
and they can't make ends meet. So it hurts them from both ends, too, from a stress point.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we know what these are, musculoskeletal injuries, why are these so important to care about and prevent and actually treat effectively? I mean, why does the company care?
Yeah. I just want to, when you look at the type of musculoskeletal disorders, strains and sprains, we look at the cost, how costly they are to a company. Companies want to flourish. They want to grow. They want to develop their culture. But when you're actually looking at things like backaches and shoulder problems, which are like number 1 and number 2 across the board for work and non-work related strains and sprains, they're really costly. So if you think about it from like a non-work standpoint, if a person has a bad back, they may call into work and say, I can't show up today. So there, productivity shot. And then you have people having to work overtime or extra fast to recoup for that. And vice versa, if you have someone that, let's say, it is a work-related event, oh my gosh, things get really costly. We look at backs and shoulders. Again, if I look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're actually just recently listing shoulders and back as being, again, back to the top 1 and 2 injuries across the nation, kind of regardless of industry. And when you look at things, shoulders being such a complicated structure, that when an injury does happen, it's so costly. Just to keep that under control, to manage that injury, the costs are just astronomical. And then backs, we see a lot of frequency in back injuries. And even though maybe they're a little bit less to manage, but they're just more frequent. So again, it's just managing those types of injuries extremely costly to companies.
Yeah, it's money. I would say it's just all about money, right? I mean, that's why we have jobs and we go out to companies and we try to help. It's all about how can you take something that should cost almost no money and keep it from costing thousands and thousands of dollars, right? I mean, if the average shoulder surgery goes $20,000 to $40,000, I'd say, every company wants to prevent that from happening. So the more you can prevent, the more medical care. That's why we do what we do.
Do what we do, yeah. And I think from the personal side of things, talking about the holistic person, pain is just a really big determinant in a lot of different things. We talked about, I know last year we hit on the fact that it can increase your risk of, suicide, kind of looking at that. Definitely productivity, definitely communication, definitely altered mood when you're in more pain, not to mention, like you were saying, Scott, the lost, productivity, and maybe even absenteeism when you're not, or presenteeism when you're there and you're not really there because you're in pain. So there's a human standpoint along with the sustainability of both the insurance cost and the company's overall growth and sustainability in our community.
They're going to pay it one of two ways. They're going to pay it through their health care benefits, or they're going to pay it through their work comp benefits.
Yeah.
It's going to pop up.
So I did, in my research for this presentation, I kind of just did a little digging about our team and your team here with the Ergo team, and I just found these amazing stats. I'm going to brag on you guys just a little bit here, but why you are these local experts. And it looks like you're over 90% successful in the people that you all treat, meaning that these patients do not need any further medical care after you guys are done with that program. No further doctor visits, no medical imaging. And that's actually based off of 2,000 patients seen here in our area in 2018 in the early intervention program. So congrats on that. I mean, what the correlation is, from some of our local partners, we partner with, you guys partner with NWTC and have freely shared the on-site therapy services estimated savings in 2016 was $241,000. $479, and we reduced the musculoskeletal disease category by more than $500,000, or that's more than 30%. Some cool data that I just kind of happened on too was that in your team working with a local manufacturing company just actually saved $600,000 this year on work comp injuries after 1 year of working with your team. So I really want to say, first of all, congrats on that. And then just for our listeners to really value in the awesome work that these guys do in answering your questions for today. So we're going to jump into the questions that were submitted here, and we're going to hope to get through all of them. Our apologies if we don't, but we do have a next step resource that we'll offer to get those questions answered. So first and foremost, this is our first question. What exercises can be done to minimize hand and arm soreness from long periods of computer work?
Right. So, you look at computer work, and I think more and more people are having to access some form of desktop, be it data entry for a complete shift, or perhaps they have an assembly job or more of a manual task job. There's usually quantities or production or things that they need to access to get on a computer. But when I look at what things then can be done to kind of reduce some of that stiffness and soreness, well, the first thing I'll tell you is that it's no different than us sitting in a chair for a prolonged period of time. How does your back feel? How does your bottom feel? How do your hamstrings feel? If you're stuck in a static position, much like at a keyboard for a prolonged period of time, maybe doing some mousing, let's just get up and change position. And sometimes we'll do things we call them postural resets. Other people call them stretches. And, one that you can do with me right now, and it's like taking both of your palms and placing them together and kind of overlapping your fingers, and then elevate your elbows, and then you should feel a nice, good stretch in your forearms. And holding those types of stretches, but usually you want to hold them for a good 25 to 35 seconds. So that's one example of many types of postural resets that you can do. Other things that we'll do is there's even equipment from an ergonomic standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, and and I'm sure we've all seen like the fancy ergonomic keyboards that are split key, or we've seen a lot of different type of computer mice. So I know products do change. I always caution people, be very careful, be an educated purchaser, because there's lots of, I call them a bit of gimmicky products that are out there. So be careful, be wise where you kind of spend your money, but I tell people, make an excuse to get up and take a break. So like even if you're drinking water, we're trying to hydrate ourselves, what's the next thing to do is use the restroom. It's a good example, even like every hour changing that posture in your hands and wrists.
Yeah, I always like to talk to people who sit a lot. Not even just from the hand and arm, but from the upper back to neck area. Don't go home and sit and go on media and use your hands again. Doing stuff outside of work. If you're sedentary and you sit a lot at work, you cannot do it at nighttime. Otherwise, if you really added up the amount of time that you're using mainly just your elbow, wrist, and hand and kind of holding a specific posture, it is amazing how that adds up. So you have to do other things outside of work. So if you kind of know that you have this designated posture that you're going to be doing for work, because sometimes you can't change it, right? I work at a laptop, I work at a computer, sometimes I'm even monitored to make sure that I'm at my computer. It's like, okay, you have to do things outside of work so that you're not in those same postures. And so, getting up and moving is great, but also when you're not working, maybe you're doing other things, you're exercising, you're walking as opposed to sitting. And so I think sometimes when people get pain too, they go home and don't want to do anything because they have pain. And so it's like that's probably the worst thing you can do if you sit at a computer.
When I was on site as a nurse as well, I think one of the things that I saw, and even in my own personal life, because we do a lot of charting, when I was on site, is really just getting set up properly with your keyboard. And I know our team really helped me get set up properly. So how I was holding my hands or my wrist dipping and things like that. Was my mouse was too far away, so I had a sore shoulder. So just as simple as that. And that's where I think this team really brings different setups and things like that is important.
I think it's interesting Scott said that about the equipment. Like, there's no proof that certain equipment really decreases injuries specifically, right? So if you get the ergonomic keyboard that's split, like that might be nice for some people, but that also might make some people's elbows go too wide. Or if you get the vertical mouse as opposed to the mouse that's kind of flat, that completely changes how you use it. And I think you even actually passed along an article like last week or two. It showed like too vertical of a mouse isn't good either, based off of people's reports of pain and comfort and confidence in using it. And so what the research does show is strengthening. You should be strengthening your upper back to help with back pain for desk-type postures. Not as much about buying the most perfect equipment or the sit-to-stand stations.
Or even the chairs.
Everybody wants the sit-to-stand station, right? But there's also a statistic that shows that I think it's after 3 months, like 60 to 80% of people go back to sitting and they don't even use the sit-to-stand station. So
I'm seeing some hand raised.
So you got to be careful if it's just equipment. It's a lot about strengthening the muscles and moving muscles different than how you're doing it during the day.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so the next question is, what is the number one mistake that employees make when they have a musculoskeletal injury?
Gosh, number one.
Number one, how could you pick one?
1A, 1B, and 1C.
Right,
I'll start with 1A. I would say, and we actually we get asked this question quite often. And the big picture I'll tell people is we put down what we call our current best practices. So when we meet with our one-on-ones or we even do a presentation, and as Adam and I, we've engaged with many customers over the years, we'll create a list of recommendations, and it's no different than having a baking a cake or baking a pie or something that you enjoy. The more of the recipe that you comply with or you follow through with, the better the outcome. So it's no different. I'm going to suggest compliance. I'm going to just sum it up as compliance. We're going to give you a list. It may have things like we'd like to have you stretch. We'd like to have you maybe increase your hydration. We'd like to have you maybe, let's say, job rotation, or let's say you start communicating more about your needs. Let the company know about your aches or pains up front, not hiding them. It's all those things that really, it's back to compliance. We're going to put that list together, and the more compliant you are with that list, the better the outcome. Hence, the better the dessert. That's my recipe.
My take on that is I don't think companies portray how important it is for people to be physically ready to do their job, especially if it's a physical job or if it's a sedentary job. I must have this conversation 3 to 4 times a week where I'm telling people, you need to think of your body as an athlete would think of their body, right? I mean, if Clay Matthews would learn how to stretch his hamstrings and activate different muscle groups, he probably wouldn't be injured all the time.
Another contract?
Right. But, employees got to think the same way. If you do the same thing every day, how are you stretching? How are you strengthening to prevent that activity from causing you a problem? Freak accidents happen. People slip. And then it becomes more of a safety issue. But when it comes down to repetitive tasks or overexertions, people don't take care of their body over time. And so maybe they were fit at one time too, and they just haven't really revisited back in making themselves just healthy. So that's why I must say that, man, I said it twice yesterday in the cold day, so in the snow day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a good point. And I guess from my standpoint, just from being on site and stuff too, that as a nurse, I would say, making sure you just follow the safety, filling out the form, letting the employer, following the correct path that you need to take. If you do have an injury, I always ask, did you fill out the form yet? And that's one thing that you really, you have to start with, and just activate those support systems, and then take really good care. Take yourself very seriously, and your healing very seriously.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because if people don't tell anyone, they don't tell anyone, there's a chance and the statistic is 80%. It'll go away if they do nothing, right? But then there's that 20% where they don't tell you, and those are the ones that start costing you money because nobody can help them.
Right, and nobody wants to be in pain, I guess, either. So, all right, the next question was, what are some immediate measures that employers can take to minimize the effects of the job on the body? And we'll break this up. One was white collar, one was blue collar. So you can start with whatever one you want.
Yeah, and to that point, too, there might even be some blend with both these. But when I look at the blue collar, I'll begin with that. That's one of the companies I was at this morning. I go back to, I just actually jotted down a few concepts here. Big thing about job rotation. So when you can look at job rotation, and usually up to about an hour maybe at each job, then you rotate to the next area. Think about how mundane a task can get. So not only is a good job rotation healthy on the body, but think about the mind. So that goes into the whole psychological, psychosocial component, and not, just doing the same job in a day and out. So trying to actually rotate through those different jobs. And I think we touched on the last measure too about that early accident and early investigation of those symptoms. So as Adam kind of pointed out, with low back pain, a lot of those symptoms will resolve up to about 80% over time. But think about that. The faster that you can actually tell someone, like if it's your supervisor or if it's just, if you can confide, maybe you've got a special friend there at work, or better yet, safety. Let people know, because perhaps for all you know, others may be having the same issue. Someone might have made a purchase, maybe a bad purchase on a number of chairs, and let's say the chairs don't fit the workers. Let's think about, again, it's about bringing up those interests for the better of the team. So that can help everybody. I'll think about even the postural resets or stretches. While stretching alone is not going to mitigate the problem. But think about just postural reset. Again, I go back to if you're just sitting too long, we could all be in a ride in the most plush Cadillac. You could be traveling somewhere, but after about an hour or two, don't you just want to get up and move and just let your body kind of reset itself? And then also want to touch on, I just call it body awareness. Your body is an amazing tool. And think about that. If you just sit there right now as we're talking through this and just think about, do you have like any stiffness or soreness today? Maybe you've got it in a shoulder from shoveling too much snow yesterday. Or maybe you've got it in a hip because maybe you slipped and tripped on the ice. But as things happen, listen to your body. Your body is telling you what needs to be dealt with. So.
Yeah, I'd say the most important thing is to get people to move. The immediate measures someone could take is to, I would say is a stretching program. Just not even because the stretching program is going to be maybe the most effective in preventing the job, but at least it's getting people to move and think about their health and to get their mind in a mindset where they're actually thinking about how can I help myself prevent an injury. And so it's a cultural task. And so if you can start to create the culture in which people start to feel like health is something that becomes important,
talk about it.
Yeah, then to do it. So that's 50% of why a stretching program is a good thing, not because it's necessarily appropriate for everyone, but it makes health top of mind.
Yeah, I'd just like to add just a few things when I heard you guys talking. I think, the cultural component is really big here, and it starts with, sometimes the one who's hearing this. I think for, especially the company who is the more white collar, if you're sitting a lot, and sitting is a part of what you do, it is a mind shift to actually get up and be away from your desk and to schedule those times away or to walk on your lunch. You might be doing some counterculture things there, but it really starts with one person being, saying, I'm going to be more productive because I do these different things and I'm taking care of my health because I do these things. So just really flowing with that and inviting others kind of into that conversation, that it doesn't, sitting in a seat doesn't mean that you're a more productive worker than I am, when I schedule in these different movement breaks within. So the other thing I heard you say that I want to hone in on two things, but the job rotation and training, that's a retention strategy. And I think in this market, training upwards and giving that variety and opportunities, I think that's a great thing, along with, diminishing the repetitive injuries. And then lastly, Adam, to your point about stretching and giving people that stretching program, sometimes it's a matter, because I was a trainer before this, so it's a matter of not knowing how to stretch. I mean, not everybody is just going to say, well, this is what I do for a hamstring. They just know it hurts, or they just know it's tight. But how do you do it? So I think giving people those tools, like you said, to be successful at home and at work are really important. So good stuff. Good stuff. When these issues, next question, when these issues do occur, what emerging trends are employers utilizing to minimize costs of treatment?
Sure. I mean, thus far, I would say that currently, we do something called early intervention, which is when somebody says they have pain, we try to keep that injury from becoming larger. And so that, we're successful, like you had mentioned before, over 90% of the time, right? So that's a trend. That's kind of great. I think people are even further going with that now. They're looking even before someone gets hurt. More and more companies are asking, well, what can I do to keep my employee healthy before they actually would get hurt? So, are there screens that we can put our employees through that help identify maybe some of these risk factors? Or could we do more ergonomics up front? Could we do, I've seen a lot of companies across the nation doing strengthening programs, and you've never heard people doing strengthening programs around here. Like a stretching program, everybody started a stretching program, but strengthening programs are a bigger deal now. And so it's more about can you prevent them from even getting hurt? And so, I mean, we have something called a job-specific wellness plan that tries to address that, but it could be even, more than that, individualizing it for the individual and making it appropriate for the whole department of people. So getting even more before the pain begins.
Right, and dare I say a survey. Because to Adam's point, we want to make it very focused on the job. Everybody has at their job essential tasks to do. So to keep things focused, if you're going to create a program, sometimes we will put out a survey just to get feedback. Because again, when I'm performing an ergonomic assessment, sometimes I get some of my best solutions right from the employees themselves.
Absolutely.
And what we do is we're empowering the culture. We're empowering the culture of the population. We're utilize available assets and resources. Maybe there's a really good maintenance team that can fabricate the site. Or perhaps you've got other merchandise. Maybe you have another sister facility that can provide you with ample products as well. If it's chairs, desks, maybe if you're looking for different keyboards and things like that. So look internally at your resources. But the most important thing is if you do going back to using a survey, you have to make sure you react to it and you respond to it. Don't just kind of pack it away and get that response.
Right. So I think, we covered a lot of information today. We got to a majority of our questions. I feel like I'll have some next steps for Scott and Adam here to follow up with a few of you. But we want to leave you with something from today's session. And this is a complimentary company, Musculoskeletal Consultation. Scott, you just want to tell us a little bit about where you're going with this and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So there is, I tell you what, I've met with so many customers throughout the greater Green Bay area and throughout northeastern and central Wisconsin. When you look at things, all of them have one thing in common. All of them have a concern about how to manage their musculoskeletal aches and pains. And with that said, each customer I go to has their own unique blends of issues, factors that arise. And it could be ergonomic, it could be cultural, it could be, we've got a stressed out workforce and their muscles are tight. So really in this case, the complementary musculoskeletal assessment, it gives me a chance to actually sit down, have that conversation with you, and really dig deep and dive and actually understand the culture, the uniqueness of your workforce, and then create kind of a customized program that could work for you. And also with that, I want to add, I'd like to come back then and even offer, if it's to the employee population or if it's to your leadership team, but offer up even a presentation and actually give you that opportunity to ask questions and engage further.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I want to thank you both for being here today and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And then I want to invite you all to our next Health Innovations at Work mini session. Be assertive, not aggressive. Empowered communication for life with Tara L. Fletcher. This was a big one in our surveys of your feedback from last year, and talking about that elusive culture piece. So thank you all for joining us. You will be sent the recording and the slide deck along with the Next Step resource in a couple of days. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.